Yesterday, I issued a statement that provided some basic information about the outcome of a search and arrest operation at the residence of Sergio Pino, who is now deceased. Today, I want to add to that statement and perhaps give a little bit more context of this investigation. While I can't go into great detail, given that the investigation is still ongoing, I feel the South Florida public needs to know more. First and foremost, this investigation focused on Sergio Pino's alleged efforts to have his estranged wife murdered, or what we would call a murder for hire investigation. These efforts were thwarted. She is safe, and she no longer needs to live in fear for her life. The FBI first became aware of this scheme in the fall of 2023. The investigation revealed multiple attempts by several individuals to murder his estranged wife. The searches and arrests yesterday put us at the cusp of completing an arduous investigation to uncover the truth and bring those responsible to justice for this heinous crime. Just after 6 a.m. yesterday morning, the FBI's Miami SWAT team executed a search warrant for Mr. Pino's residence. The team was also prepared to conduct a probable cause arrest in the event Mr. Pino was present. We utilized the SWAT team for this operation consistent with the nature of the violation being investigated and the evidence and intelligence gathered. Yesterday morning, the FBI's SWAT team surrounded Mr. Pino's residence, announced their presence over the loudspeakers, and ordered Mr. Pino to exit his house and surrender. Mr. Pino chose not to comply with those commands. The FBI's crisis negotiators attempted to contact Mr. Pino on his telephone and even enlisted the assistance of friends, family, and his attorney, all of whom were unable to make contact with Mr. Pino. Next, FBI SWAT utilized flashbangs, which produce a loud noise and bright flash. These are utilized to gain compliance and distract subjects in order to protect SWAT agents on scene. Unfortunately, Mr. Pino did not respond to any of our efforts to have him surrender. After an hours-long standoff, Miami SWAT agents made entry into the home and slowly and methodically cleared the residence, ultimately finding Mr. Pino deceased in his bedroom from an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. To be clear, the FBI plans and conducts every operation with the safety of all in mind: our agents, fellow law enforcement officers, bystanders, and the subjects of our investigations. This was the case yesterday. Our intent was, as with all of our operations, for everyone involved to be safe, including the subjects. Before I turn it over to United States Attorney Mark LaPointe, I have a few comments on the investigation. 2 complaints pertaining to this case were filed in federal court today that provided essential details about this case, and here are a few of those details. The Drug Enforcement Administration initiated an investigation of an attempted poisoning of the victim in July of 2022. As previously mentioned, the FBI became involved in the investigation in fall of 2023. In addition to Sergio Pino's alleged role at the head of this scheme, our evidence has shown he hired and gave orders to murder crews. There were at least 2 separate crews involved. Our investigation revealed that there were multiple attempts on the victim's life to include poisoning, an intentional vehicle ramming, an attempted shooting, as well as 2 separate arsons. To date, 9 individuals have been taken into custody. This complex investigation was like a puzzle where some of the most important pieces were not fully in place until a short time ago. It was then that the full picture came into view, tying all of the alleged individuals to their activity. In addition to the FBI team that doggedly pursued this investigation, we could not have reached this point without close cooperation with the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida, along with the Drug Enforcement Administration, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, Pinecrest Police Department, the City of Miami Police Department, FBI Jacksonville Field Office, and the Florida Department of Financial Services Bureau of Fire, Arson, and Explosive Investigations. Because this is an ongoing investigation, I'm very limited as to what I'm going to be able to say in the question and answer portion. I will now turn it over to United States Attorney, Mr. Mark LaPointe.
Thank you, Jeff. Good afternoon. This case is about a husband, Mr. Pino, who decided after years of marriage that he was going to kill his wife. He had the means, the opportunity, and the willingness to have his wife killed. And he tried to have her killed on separate occasions. First, he tried to poison her over a period of time. When that failed, he put out a contract on her head on 2 separate occasions, hiring separate groups of hitmen to do the job. When the FBI closed in on him, he apparently, and of course tragically, committed suicide rather than face justice. Today, my office has filed charges against Avery Bivens and Fausto Villar for their alleged roles in Pino's continued and relentless attempts to harass, intimidate, stalk, and kill his estranged wife. As alleged in the complaint affidavits today, Mr. Pino enlisted 2 groups, and I want to talk a little bit about these 2 groups of hitmen, to wage an offensive against his wife and other victims. Tactics included poisoning, as SAC Velchi just mentioned, vehicle arsons, a car ramming, and an armed assault on his wife and daughter at their home. Let's talk a little bit about the first group. The first group consisted of 4 hitmen, all of whom have been previously arrested and charged in this district. I'm going to run down the list for you. Baron Bennett, a man who worked for Pino, and it is interesting, it is important for you to keep that in mind as well. The individuals that were actually leading those crews, they all had some sort of special relationship with Mr. Pino, at least that's our allegation. In this particular case, Bennett, he was the liaison between Mr. Pino and the folks that were part of the scheme to actually kill Mrs. Pino. Bennett actually worked as kind of a hired help on Mr. Pino's yacht. And he was enlisted as the middleman to bring on others to kill the estranged wife. The other individuals on the first crew, that is, we're going to talk about crew number 1, and we're going to talk about crew number 2. Jaron Howard, Michael Dulfo, D-U-L-F-O, and Edner Etienne, E-T-I-E-N-N-E. As early as July 2022, that's a couple years ago, this group stalked Pino's estranged wife, set fire to 2 cars belonging to Pino's sister, and used a rental truck to crash into the wife's car while she was inside the car. And they actually obtained fentanyl to assist Pino in his effort to kill his wife. I'll get back to that in a little bit. Law enforcement uncovered the scheme and arrested and charged these 4 men in March 2024. But this arrest did not deter Pino's efforts. You would think at that point, once the first crew failed, Mr. Pino would have said, okay, this is done, we're gonna move on. Now, Mr. Pino then hired a second crew. And as alleged in the complaints filed today, following the March 2024 arrest, Pino enlisted another associate, Fausto Villar, to keep the murder plan going, which Villar did by contacting the following individuals. Avery Bivens, and he offered Bivens the contract to kill his wife. The terms of the contract as alleged were as follows. Pino would pay $150,000 on the first disbursement, and another $150,000 if the murder did not connect Pino to the activities. Lastly, Mrs. Pino had to die before their next divorce proceedings. And that's an important element, it's an important point, an important factual part of this. In June 2024, the second group of hitmen allegedly stalked Pino's estranged wife at different locations throughout South Florida. Then on June 23, 2024, members of the group allegedly went to the home of Pino's estranged wife. One of the members exited a car with a firearm in hand, approached and chased Pino's wife, who was driving her car at the time. And Mrs. Pino somehow managed to get inside the house. And at some point, the daughter that was then at the time in the house, she came out. The perpetrator at the time actually pointed the gun at the daughter's head. Literally, she was looking at the barrel of a gun. Ultimately, he decided he was not going to kill the daughter. That was not the job, that was not the contract. It is alleged that Bivens and Villar, they continued communicating about the murder plot and payment after the unsuccessful murder attempt on June 23rd. Bivens, Green, Bernard, and Johnson have been arrested and charged, Bivens and Bernard have been arrested and charged in separate complaints. So it is, as a matter of structure, to think of the scheme, think of it in three parts. In terms of Mr. Pino's decision to actually kill his wife. The first part was he was going to try to poison Mrs. Pino, and that took a certain amount of time. That failed. The second time was put out a contract on her with the second crew, who then went on to recruit the members of that crew to actually perpetrate that scheme. And then the third and final time, obviously those didn't succeed, the final time involved the second crew, who actually went on to try to execute the murder for hire, and it didn't succeed, although at the time they ended up pointing a gun at Pino's daughter. We will not take some questions, although as S.A.C. Velch just mentioned, this is an ongoing investigation. As we speak right now, complaints are being filed. Those two individuals are now having their day in court on their first appearance. So there's a whole lot we may not be able to actually provide you answers to, but we wanted to make sure that we give you an opportunity to ask you some questions in connection to this, to the extent that we can talk about it.